Hello and welcome everyone to Silicon Beach Founder Stories. Today we're talking to Dr. Santosh Kaur and the founder of SmartHeal about her exciting startup journey, and not just startup, but life journey in general. And her experience with Silicon Beach. Thank you so much for joining us, Santosh.
Thank you so much for having me, David. Amazing and really, really grateful to be here. Thank you so much. And in terms of coming to you, like how we met or journey with Silicon Beach, would you like me to tell a little bit about how I came to you?
No, let's start. Let's go far further back in your journey. So you have a really exciting life, and you accomplished so many things in your young life already. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you're coming from? When did you come to Australia? And what's your career journey? And how did you come to your first startup?
Oh, sure. That I could talk about, definitely. Look, I was born in India and I came to Australia in 2009, and it was kind of an interesting journey. So I always knew I wanted to be in healthcare. All my maternal side, so my aunties, my uncles, like they've all got hospitals, midwife, pharmacists. So I was in and out of the hospitals anyway. And I knew like I wanted to be in health. When I was in like year 11, my grandfather had cancer. And I so remember very vividly, like, doing my school and my exams and then going to meet him, etc. So it was a lot of hospital exposure. I knew I wanted to be in health. So I went on and studied to be a doctor, had my own practice in India, and it was a very good time. And then I realized, okay, wait, I wanted to go overseas, and I looked up where I wanted to go. And I was like, okay, you know what? NHS really piques my interest. I want to go to UK and work there. But then I started looking around, and then I ended up in Australia, totally thinking of something else and coming here, and lived here ever since and called it a home. And it's been a whole another journey coming to Australia, because when you come with a very different mindset. And I was like, okay, we'll see how we go. But that's changed into now 2022, like 13, 14 years. So that's been a very interesting step.
Wow. So you already were a doctor before you came to Australia?
Yes, I studied my degree in India. It was like 6.5 years degree. So you study for 5.5 years and you work as an intern. And so I had done my degree. But when I came to Australia, interestingly, that's why I'm always like, oh, well, doctor, yes. But I was like, okay, well, if I have to study again for such a long time and do the bridging and test, etc., so I decided to be a nurse. Because I did not need it to do the whole studying and whole testing, etc. So then I changed to nursing here. I worked in hospitals. I worked in terms of career. So once I came out of nursing, I worked in hospitals, aged cares, and then private, public. I worked in Essendon private, and then I realized, okay, well, what is my what's the field I really like? And I chose aged care as my specialty. And again, in aged care, I'd always choose wounds as my specialty. I actually have a personal connection to wounds as well. So when I was growing up, my nan had a wound, and so she had a wound on her spine. And I remember, like, my uncle would dress her. She'll sit on this bed, and every time he'll dress the wound, she'll be in pain. But yeah, so I always choose wounds as specialty throughout the aged care. Worked from nurse to care manager to senior management positions, and then I just in the pursuit of making an impact, like how do I make a bigger impact? I worked in Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission. We started off as a registered clinician, and it was interesting to work through COVID. Because we were so short of nurses and we had to pivot. The commission had to pivot. So we ended up doing infection control monitoring visits. So what that looked like is we would go to aged cares during the height of COVID to check on their infection control monitoring policies. And it was quite an experience I'll remember for the rest of my life, seeing those makeshift defense, how the defense was working with aged care and how the whole aged cares were now just very, very different, and, no staff and very minimum, and everything was pretty much like empty. So yeah, that's been my interesting journey and how I started with startup. So when we would look at investigate the complex complaints in aged care and would look at the wounds, it was the same basic gaps, David. And I was just surprised. And then we have to investigate, and then we try to put measures in place to mitigate the risk for future occurrences so it doesn't happen again. And would look at the things. Okay, well, what can we make sure? But one thing I felt like we were leaving unaddressed is the nurses, doctors, podiatrists, wound consult, they have the best intentions, but they don't have the resources. They want to make a difference, but they don't have the resources. So for example, if you have a wound and I've changed your name to Hauser and I've put a W instead of US, I've lost your photo, right? And that, I think, is not the best use of nursing skills or doctor skills, for example. So that should be automated. And that's how I thought it can't be. We still cannot be doing this. Maybe I'm out of touch with the practice. Maybe I need to go back and check what's happening. So that's how I got started. I actually went outside of my commission, took a break, and I went to a private wound clinic, thought they'll have the best resources and they'll have all the top technology and they'll be providing the best wound care. So I will do a long shift. I'll work in the hyperbaric chamber, which is like a oxygen around that we will work with. And at the end of the shift, I'll sit down and then we'll put those photos from that physical camera, rename them at the end. And interestingly, because it was around a demographic area where there's a lot of diversity, I would find myself doing the same thing. And I think that's how my first step of validating that, SmartHeal is a need started.
That's amazing. So you've been through so many stages in the healthcare sector, and you discovered this problem everywhere you went, and that's how you came up with the idea.
Pretty much, yes, everywhere I went. And I still we're a part of this group where, so in India, all the college I studied, like people came from different states together. And now all of them, like someone works in the private hospital, in public hospital, someone's like a major government hospital. And it's interesting, like when I put something in the group and we share, it's interesting how it's like India has the same problem, whichever states, and we in Australia have the same problem. And now we're talking different societies in UK and US. And yeah, so it is a very global, universal problem.
And that's for such a long time already. So please explain us a little bit. SmartHeal. What is SmartHeal, and what is the exact problem that it solves?
Sure. So SmartHeal, at the moment, David, if you had a wound, regardless of which country you are in and what healthcare setting you are in, whether you're in hospital, aged care, NDIS, the way we provide wound care is very manual. So if I have to measure your wounds, I would have a paper ruler. If I have to measure the depth, I'll put a dipstick. That's how we measure the rules, measure the wounds. When it comes to electronic record keeping, so how do I keep track of that wound data is again very manual. So because of privacy reasons, I can't dress your wounds in public, and the EMRs live in offices, right? So by EMR, I mean the electronic systems where we keep all the data and the record. So basically the problem is we write things on the paper, then we go to the rooms, we do the dressings, and we come back, and then we sit on this electronic, for example, desktops again, and then we share it quite manually. The third biggest challenge is dressings. So I am a nurse in Australia, right? But when it comes to putting the dressings on the wounds, I did not do a lot of training, and that is across the board. And I was actually, in fact, speaking to CEO of a very major wound body, and we discussed the same problem, that it is, still very anecdotal. And even the research shows it's very, very anecdotal when it comes to dressing. So when they're choosing the dressings, everyone has their own way of doing. So there's no universal way of selecting that there's a clinical pathway, then the wound is moist, this dressing is better than over the other. So it's very anecdotal. Everyone's picking, choosing, really, a lot of guesswork, a lot of wrong assessments, and everybody would, collate to that is a problem. So what SmartHeal does is we are automating the wound measurements. We are allowing you to do an aspect of telehealth for wound care. And then we are also allowing you to keep the data securely, but it takes the guesswork out of renaming the photos, attaching the photo, WhatsApping or email. You rather actually take the photos inside the patient portal. So your data and, that guesswork is out. And then with dressings, we've actually gained submissions from wound consultants, and that's how we're collaborating, putting together a database. So then the SmartHeal will assist you in making those dressing choices, and which will be informed choices backed by research. So that's the three things we are doing at the moment majorly, but obviously there's a lot of other things in the pipeline. Our vision is to be the change that professionals need, the healthcare professional needs to simplify their workflows. And that's not just wounds, that's a lot of other workflows we are looking at as well.
Wow, that's much more than I actually understood so far what SmartHeal is doing. Thank you, Santosh. But please explain to our listeners, why is it important that we measure the wound? Because I recall when I've heard your pitch for the first time, you explained how painful it is to actually measure the wound. Why is that important?
Sure. So for example, there's two measurements you and I have talked about. There are a lot of other aspects of the wounds we measure, but I would not go into that. So there's two parts, there's wound measurements and there's wound assessment. So assessment is, for me, example, looking at the tissue and thinking, well, how much tissue is viable as in living there? Is there an infection? Is there a moisture? Is it epithelializing? Like, how's the skin looking, etc.? How's the surrounding of the wounds looking? So that's the way they assess if the wound is in a good position. And that's how we would look at, is it getting worse or is it getting better? The measurement is very important aspect of looking at the wound journey. And unfortunately, in healthcare, any setting, there's not one professional who's working every day, right? There's a lot of shift work. Same with the doctors. Different doctors are doing the rounds. So if you don't have the wound measurements, or if you can't see if the wound was smaller or bigger, or was bigger before or smaller before, it was 5 mm and now it's 3 mm, or it was actually 2 mm and now it's 5 mm. That's gone pear-shaped. So that's why it's very important. So long story short, the wound measurements are actually a way to tell you, when I say you, the wound care people, that about the journey of the wound, whether it's getting better, whether it's getting worse. So it's a very important parameter we look at in terms of the wound journey. And that's why it's very important. And it's a standard monitoring tool, and it's a requirement as well that we measure the wounds. So there's a few other things, like, for example, in aged care, we have star ratings, and, when you're being proactive, how you're monitoring the wounds, that's one parameter.
I see. So it's not just a one-off assessment. It's something that is with the patient and the people that are taking care of the patient for the whole healing process.
Throughout, once you've actually attained the wound, to the point, we've closed it off, or it's healed, or it's, the wound is no longer alive. So throughout the journey, it's a very important parameter. Ideally, every time you would dress a wound, so every time you would take a dressing off, unless you're just having a quick look, every time you do a dressing change, you've done I'm talking about chronic wounds, for example, you would actually measure. And simple skin tears as well, you'll see the close off at the edges. So the measurements in every aspect is usually every time you do a proper dressing change, those kind of measurements we look at. And photos are definitely at each change we take photos.
I see. And it's purely meant for professionals there, or is there an end user application for SmartHeal as well?
That's a very smart question, David. I like how you, just be very calm, but then you come up with very, very appropriate questions. No, definitely. At the moment, we are very B2B. So it's not something you can download off of your Android or iPhone. It is available for both, but it's actually an enterprise account where we will send you the link. And when I say you, it's the wound professionals, whether it's a podiatrist. At the moment, we have 5 wound consultants using it. We're also talking with 2 NDIS providers who would use it. So at the moment, it's an enterprise account with a B2B link where we send you a private link to download. However, in future, we do have an option where the customers or the end users would use it. We are also trialing it in the coming months. By that, I mean Jan, February next year, we will start trialing with the caregivers. So they don't have to actually come to wound professionals. The caregivers of the people who have wound, for example, in remote and rural areas, they can actually take photos and send it to the wound consultants, and then hence they can save themselves that time and use that day for something else instead. And eventually we will also launch it for B2C, which is end users, or anybody, for example, in Australia, if you have a spider bite and you don't want to go to your GP, you can take those photos and download the SmartHeal, and then your GP can have access through SmartHeal, and then you can just go in and sit at the beach instead.
Fabulous. What a game changer for well-being, health in remote areas.
Thank you. Yes, we can see we have quite a good use in remote and rural. So we're already talking to a very large rural community. What happens there is their population is in like 2,000 to 3,000. But when it comes to tourist season, like the beach time, summer season, it actually triples. And then the healthcare comes under quite a pressure. And because of surfing, etc., in that area, wounds is a major problem. So we are working on a project with them where, the professionals can actually cater to more population instead of, long wait time. So hopefully it'll go well.
Hopefully, yeah, that triggers a story. That's not my interview, but I had a cut in the Northern Territory once, swimming in a water hole, and carried that along for another 3 weeks, and it was really hard to find medical attendants in those remote areas to get the wound looked after.
Yeah, it reminds me from your pitch night, actually. I met one of the people, and now we're still negotiating and talking with them. And I was just asking what makes them so interested in SmartHeal. And basically they said they were overseas, and by overseas, it means Europe, and they do speak other language, but apparently they almost died from a wound. So they actually had, I wouldn't go in details because I don't have the consent to share the whole story, but they ended up having a wound which would almost kill them. But the whole process of taking photos and having that remote healthcare was very, very tedious. Even though they could translate the documents, it was very, very bad experience. So he actually, they really shared the problem. So it's interesting, yeah, how people can come up with stories. You would think, well, wounds is such a specific area. Who would have wounds? But yeah, like you said, oh wow, who would have thought like waterhole and the whole wound journey? From one of the other pitch nights we went to, someone sent us the wound photos. Obviously, we've done the whole consent, etc. And it's so many surfing wound photos, and they've actually, I can see the whole wound journey from having that, going to stitches, getting infected, and then getting better. So yeah.
Amazing. So that's a great product and a great service that you're offering, and really makes a difference for people. And we learned that basically the spark came while you were working in aged care, especially during Corona. So that's your first startup. So from the idea, what happened then? When did you actually come up with the startup idea? Or when did the transition from an idea into, okay, I make it happen?
Yeah, look, I'm not sure if I would say it's my first startup. I mean, as a business person, my father's always been a business. He's never held a job, right? So he had businesses from, it's very interesting businesses has had, like he's had property and finance that we've seen, like, most recent time. So he's been a financier. We've had an electronic shop where we sold TVs, etc. And from a very young age, so that's all I've seen, that's how you earn money, by doing business, right? But obviously I had an interest, and they put a lot of effort in me becoming a healthcare professional. So business is something I've always seen. Investing is something I've always seen. He always invested in property, and we always had more than one property. That's just how we looked at things. I also hold a share portfolio. So that's how we've always looked at, monetizing the business opportunities. But it's also with the impact. So for example, even with my father, like with electronic shops in India, he would do the dowry thing. So dowry is in India when women get married, you give them gifts. So for example, my father would, the women who couldn't afford to give gifts to their families, etc., would always each year, in fact, each month, he would do 1 to 2 people, right? And yeah, so we always thought whatever he wanted to pursue, and he pivoted along the time, so many times. I remember and he made me a part of it. So when we decided to open up the electronic shop, I remember him coming the proposal from the TV brands. And I felt like I was choosing which TV brands we were going to sell. I was like, yeah, we'll send Tesla over LG. So he always involved us in that way. So business was always a part of us. My last business, and I've done a couple of businesses before as well. So my last business was an online business as well. But with SmartHeal, I think more than a business or more than a startup, I did not know what the startup world is. It was just a problem I was passionate about. And I actually just started to find out, why don't we do things in healthcare when we have so much tech around? I think that was a question I was trying to answer. It was not even that I'm going to solve wounds or what is SmartHeal. I did not have a name. So basically, it was like, okay, so I'm sitting here. There's yet another complaint. We've made this list. Now we're deciding about, okay, it's a nurse's problem. Whereas I can see the nurse on that shift would have got all good intentions, right? But they did not have the resources. But why are we doing anything? Surely it's not right. And then like I said, I went to the wound clinic. Then I said, no, it has to be a better way. Why? And then just answering that why led one thing to the another. And I think it would be the people when I started looking online, and I had no idea that it can be done. So it was just, once I had the problem, my thing is once I go after something, I'm like, unless it's done, I'm not satisfied. So I was like, okay, well, surely. And then that's how it slowly started. So with the AI part, with the tech part, not my forte, not my strength. I did not know if it can be done. I started looking online. I remember did the gym, took my laptop, started working. And during my work break, I was sitting at a cafe and I started searching tech companies. And I ended up interviewing 18 tech companies. I think 15 of them said can't be done. 3 of them was top companies in Australia, which have done like quite a big tech projects for uni. And they said, very great idea, but it can't be done. And I think that kind of made me want to find a way to do it. And that was like 2 years ago, mind you. Then nobody was talking about AI as much and tech as much. So it was very different environment, especially in COVID. Yeah, so that's how I started. And then I realized, oh, it's called a startup. Oh, I'm an entrepreneur. Okay, it's a clinical entrepreneur. I did not know what I was doing, but it was just a problem I was trying to solve. So SmartHeal is actually a very interesting journey for myself as well. But I think the biggest aspect I would want to talk about is amazing people in the startup ecosystem. I would not have been where I am if it wasn't for the people. Like, it's amazing how many people have come to help me for nothing in return. How many people have advised us, even my advisory board. I would send one thing when I was doing the wireframe. So for example, Melinda and Damien and Tel, like they hold very, reputable positions. But I would send them an email saying, guys, we're deciding a field, for example, moisture. What should we put in it? Do we put heavy, moderate, or do we? And they'll pull up the research and they will send me all that research for nothing in return at the time, right? So it's very, very interesting how people have come together, and SmartHeal's actually now become a community where there's so many people in the community doing little things from marketing to branding to content to merch for free. It's very, very interesting. I have not paid anything for this, and I get so many compliments for my merch. And now I've got stickers coming for free. So there's yeah, it's amazing how we've built a community around us. And for example, you gave us the opportunity and we are doing this now. So it's very, very interesting. And I'm very, very grateful for it.
That's so amazing. But I can, what goes around comes around. And I think you are giving a lot yourself, and that's why you receive a lot too. I think it's an attitude thing. And I've met you at a pitch night of one of our directors, and 2 days later or 3 days later you were on our pitch night, and your generosity to contribute and to share is just amazing. And I think that's what makes the difference, why you get so many people helping you.
No, you're being so lovely, David. I felt like I was a last minute person pushing you. And if anything, I should be thanking you for being so flexible, for accommodating me on that pitch night. But I'm grateful that I was able to attend that. And I would encourage people from any startup who's listening this, yeah, you should go to Silicon Beach and give it a go. It's a very friendly environment. And people always ask me, like, what do you get out of pitch nights? And I think it's always the community and the networking, because one thing leads to another. And that's something I did not know with other networking. Everybody says is important in business. The networking in startups is very different. So yeah, you're so right with that pitch night we were doing with it was Lift Women's pitch night. No, Shalene's Women for Impact, actually.
Right, yes.
Night, yes, Women for Impact pitch night. And they had this thing, they said, okay, in between you'll have time, and anybody who wants to go on stage, you will get 1 minute to do elevator pitches. And I was like, okay, why not? I'm here. And we did the 1 minute pitch night. Then we ended up talking to you, and then we ended up coming to your pitch night. And I think that was one of the a very, very good experience, because you had the whole rounds of elimination rounds, and then the vibe was very good. I met a lot of people from there. I actually ended up, one of the judges from Scalata, Tom. So we ended up talking to Scalata, and we're still in the conversations with Scalata. Hopefully it turns well. And yeah, that was actually out of your pitch night. I've actually spoken to an asset management company out of your pitch nights. I've gotten to hear some wound stories out of pitch nights. Well, some very interesting ones, actually. Not the way we would think that people can actually end up having wounds, but very interesting stories. I met the other founders. That was amazing. I'm in touch with them. I've also been invited to a panel out of your pitch night. And I'm also talking to someone who's actually introduced me to another someone who has access to hospitals in India. And we are already working with a couple of hospitals in India, and we want to expand that. So yeah, out of your pitch night, I've met so many amazing people. So yeah, it was very, very good. And the amazing opportunity you've given me for doing this interview, and you've given me an opportunity to write an article. So yeah, that was really good.
Awesome. I'm so glad that there was you were the winner and deserved winner. All the pitches were great. But yeah, I'm so glad that positive follow-ups came out of it. And yeah, opening up your network, that's amazing. So what's coming next? What is on the roadmap for the next 3, 6, 12 months?
Sure, very good question. It's a lot to pack in there. I'll have to really be careful how I answer that in short time, because I love talking about SmartHeal and I can continue going. Look, from the time we met you, I think it was like 6, 8 weeks ago, we've gone to another pitch night in Sydney, and it was after the floods. So we were still contemplating, and it was a very tight competition, just like yours. And we were thinking, oh, maybe, I don't know what's the opportunity. There's 7 amazing startups, some of that's very ahead of us, and are we going to even make it? But we ended up winning the competition, and same like your pitch night and any other pitch night, we got some very important key contacts, some very good prizes, and we've already followed up with them, and they're translating. We've also spoken to the CEO of a big a wounds peak body to talk about partnerships with them. Also, hopefully talk about a research and development grant and a project together. The other thing we've done is actually a huge win. We brought on an advisor, and they are a highly renowned advisor. We're still doing the paperwork, so I would not make that public yet because I need their signatures. But they have allowed us, they have consented us to put on pitch decks and discuss, but that's just our protocol. I would want to make sure that I've got the signed paperwork. But yeah, very, very important advisor we've brought on. You'll see it on the LinkedIn hopefully in a couple of weeks. And they are a principal of a very big investment company now. They are highly renowned in digital space. We've also been accepted in AusSEP program, which is an Australian clinical entrepreneurship program. And that was a very tight competition as well. There was 160 applicants and they selected 80 all over Australia. So we've made that. It's a 12-month program. It will take us through a lot of networking in almost all the important unis, the government sectors, and throughout the 12 months. Basically, the agenda of the program is to make sure the companies have the best shot and becoming successful and Australian successes. So it's a collaboration between federal government, University of Melbourne, and University of Western Australia. We are a part of that, so we're very, very excited for that. We also did MedTech Origin. We just finished that, so that was really a good thing. And as you know, MedTech is also very another renowned program. What else? So yeah, and we've actually opened up a seed round internally. We haven't like made a huge public announcement, and yeah, we've already got committed angels, so that's really good. So it's getting there. And I think the biggest win is actually putting the product in the hand of users. So we launched last month, actually. We launched mid-September. So the goal we had was to have 10 customers by March 2023. That was the 6-month goal. But you already have like 5, I said, signed agreements. We have many in the pipeline. So that's been kicking goals. For 6 months, we are planning to have some partnerships out of the AusSEP program. And that would talk to our second revenue stream, which is dressing products. And then in 12 months, we definitely would be wanting to go to do at least a US trip to see how things are there, because we are in conversation with some people from US and out of your pitch night as well through Sclata. I've met with someone in US and we are talking to them. So hopefully that pans out and we end up going to US, but regardless, we'll end up going to US for a trip to further validate a product market fit. And in 12 months, hopefully we'll get, we've also gotten accepted into a program that takes startups to India. So definitely on the horizon that we will go to India. Our IP has gone through and we have found a totally new market that SmartHeal is applicable for. So hopefully once the patent is launched, which is within a week, we'd be able to talk a little bit more about it. So those are some of the things I'm very excited about.
Some of the things. You're funny.
Because I'm sure there's something I'm missing, and then I'll go, damn it, I should have talked about that. Damn it, I should have written about that. We're doing interviews. So we've done an interview with Australian Health Journal while we were in Sydney. We're also going to do a piece with the Nudge Group in February, and then we are also doing another piece in November from PR and media point of view. Yeah.
You're keeping yourself busy. I can see that you have great ambitions, and the energy you power through and you carry yourself. It's just amazing. I'm so glad that we met and that you became part of the Silicon Beach tribe.
Thank you so much. And I know I've done the plug before. I'll do it again. I think for startups, we underestimate how the community works. Like, we're talking about, oh, I've done this. It's totally a lot of bullshit. If it wasn't for the people, saying, for example, Nudge Group, you're right, they're, going to do something for us. You've done so much for us. One thing led to the another. So it's such a people power. So I would encourage, if someone is wanting to do a pitch competition in a very friendly environment, and believe me, David, I would actually chase people to say, could we please do a demo pitch night? Could I just attend? I did not know at the time, funny story, I did not know that you could just book pitch nights and you can actually go and you don't need to ask people for it. They're all over online. But if you don't look for it, once you haven't been on the journey, you don't know. And I would always think, how come people are going to pitch night and I can't find one? And now I've realized there's so many, right? But especially you have to pick and choose, and where there's a fair chance. And so, yeah, I definitely think Silicon Beach is one of them. So I'm very grateful. But yeah, if never shy away from pitching. You are gonna lose a few before you get somewhere, and it's just the practice that makes you perfect. And yeah, funnily enough, I think your pitch night was my second pitch per se, or first official pitch actually on stage with the mic. I've pitched on Zoom so many times throughout the pitch competitions. It was actually the first official pitch in public with the mic with you.
Wow, you definitely nailed it. And yes, I completely agree. It is never too early to start pitching, because you, as a founder, you will go through so many iterations, and you have to adjust so often, and you will only learn what works and what doesn't work if you really go out there and do it. So I want to empower everyone to follow your lead and pitch. Just go out there, find pitch events to go and get started.
Yes, and I would say that because sometimes people think, oh, you win, you must have. No, I did not. I remember we were part of this program, SBE, and throughout the program, we had to refine our pitch with so many aspects of the business. And the first pitch was just being vulnerable and talking about your journey. I said one sentence and I could not utter the second sentence. I was blank. I had nothing to say. And this is behind a Zoom screen with no people. So yeah, everybody screws up, and I've made a fool of myself more than I can count. But I really don't care. I think that's the way to go. You know, we learn to walk as a kid and we fall 10,000 times. I know it's cliche, but that's what I teach my son. And when I walk out of the door, I tell him, oh, I have a pitch competition. Do you think I'm going to get somewhere? He's like, yeah, you've been practicing. And it's to the point that he says, my name is Emrava. I'm the founder of SmartHeal. This is how many times I practiced my pitch at my home. And so he says, simplifying wound care. So he's actually learned the pitch. So yeah, I guess it's all about practice. We're all going to screw up. Just start reaching out, just ask, and there will be no's before yeses. But that's just the way it is, isn't it?
It is.
Mm.
And one of my favorite quotes from Guy Kawasaki: "Be happy to be scrappy," right?
Yeah, totally.
You're not going to be perfect at the first go, so just go for it.
Go for it. Exactly. Go for it. Oh my God. Yes. I'm just thinking that I can laugh. So many moments are like passing in front of my eyes. But yeah, so true. Yeah, so true. I'd like I said, I had no idea. It's like, oh, how come people are getting invited and I don't even know? It's because I didn't know you can sign up and, you know, so it's a journey. Every aspect is a journey. SmartHeal has been a very interesting journey for me. And look, I'm very grateful to be part of your community, and we'll stay in touch. As you know, I'll keep bothering you and you'll be like, aha, Santosh. But yeah, I'm sure our paths will cross again, and yeah, we'll catch up again. Yeah.
Looking forward to that. And last but not least, we're running a little bit out of time for the interview, but one thing that the community can do right now for you, is there anything that you're seeking, that you're looking for at the moment?
Yes, definitely. We are very imperfect and far from perfect, and there's so much help we need. We need wound photos. And so if you email those wound photos, I'm sure David will be able to share our details, but if you email the wound photos to us, we'll share you a consent form for this to be used to developing further our AI model for SmartHeal. You can also, we'll be opening up a crowdfunding platform somewhere in January, and then you can contribute there. We are also doing a seed round where you can become an angel. We only have a limit of 5 angels and we have 2 committed. So the check size is only 15,000. So if you're interested in invest in SmartHeal as an angel investor, that's what we are raising. We're also doing the seed round. If you're a VC and interested to learn more about us or keen to invest in us, chat to us. David will share our social media details. We're also wanting to serve underprivileged countries such as India, Pakistan, even Rwanda. So if you have any contacts that we can leverage, we're also going, that will be helpful. We are also gaining more and more customers at NDIS wound consultants, but we have not gotten to everybody. So if you have NDIS contacts, if you have HK contacts, if you work in HK, NDIS, and you'd like to trial SmartHeal, get in touch, and we'll give you a free trial, and we'll give you a demo, and we'll start talking to you. But other than that, if there's so many things that I've missed, which I surely have, just reach out, just have a chat. And if you're a starter person and you have some advice for us, we are very keen. And also, if there's someone who thinks they can get from something from us, so we can add value, or is there any way I as a founder can help you being a starter, just please reach out. That's something we really take great pleasure in.
Amazing. It's always mind-blowing, all the things that you're doing, all the things that you have in mind. I'm so grateful that you took the time to talk to us today. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see yourself and SmartHeal going places.
Thank you so much for having me, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Santosh.